I'd like to introduce Jeff Hilliard. Got a little feedback there. And AK06OK.
Wow.
Yeah.
You ever heard a call like that? AK6IOK.
It trips me up every time. But anyway, welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. And
Thank you.
I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Jeff, AK6IOK, and this is my sweet wife, Patty. You know, I was looking at this ham shack we just looked at, and his wife didn't want a big antenna, but you saw what he ended up putting up. I'm just trying to figure out how that happened, because my wife doesn't like antennas either, and I don't blame her. I get it, because we came from a house that had a massive antenna. Anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about our new repeater site we've been putting together up in Auburn at an undisclosed location. We're not going to tell you where it is, but it's at 1,200 feet. It's a beautiful site, and I had this video all set up and ready to go. You can start there if you want. I'm gonna narrate this because they can't do the audio for some reason. This is called K6IOK Site 2. Let's stop it here for a second, Brian. I want to preface this for a second. So, with all this junk going on in the world today, we decided let's put together a site that has no power, so we don't have any commercial power at this site. And let's run 7 repeaters from this place. And so how do we do that? Oh, this is perfect right there. There's a great start. So go ahead and you can run that. Okay, this is our solar panel array. We have 4 300-watt panels for a total of 1,200 watts in full sun. And you can see that we do move this to compensate for where the sun is at different times of the year. And that's wired right up to our vault right here. The vault is a stainless steel vault and nestled in the trees, which is kind of nice actually. And and then this is kind of the view that we have from up on the hill. And it's a beautiful view of Sacramento and Folsom Lake, Rancho Seco, and so forth. So yeah, it's a beautiful site up here. This is about 1,200 feet above the valley. And a lot of farmland. That's where our repeater used to be. It used to be just over to the left. And where I'm pointing there is where Paved Paws is located at by Yuba City at Beale Air Force Base. And there's 3 ranges between Beale Air Force Base and us, which prevents us from bothering them. Crazy enough, I've been to Beale and checked that out. Out there is Sacramento, where I'm pointing right there. That's the town of Sacramento. You can't really see it, obviously, in this video, but that is the town of Sacramento. And so we got a nice view of there, and we get into there pretty well. This is, of course, on our 145.13 repeater and 444.475 repeater. And then the vault is right there. You can see the tower. We just installed the vault and the tower. That is a stainless steel vault. The tower is a 40-foot aluminum tower. It's an amazing tower. It's got 4 sections in it. It only weighs about 150 to 200 pounds. 2 of us can put that in and pick it right up off there. You crank it down and you're set. So you can actually pick it up and lay it over. Then inside of our vault, first of all, you understand this is a work in progress. That's a rat's nest of wiring right there. These are heated doors, strangely enough. This was some type of an environmental box that was donated to us. And so those are heated doors on both sides. You got 4 doors there. And there's our repeaters, and the batteries are on the floor. I'll kind of go through that. You see up there on top are the duplexers. That's 1 set of duplexers. We have 3 sets in there now. We'll have 5 sets of duplexers when we're finished. And we just finished building a little shelf for that. Have our service monitor up there. There's an old timer, but we use that to keep things on frequency and the audio levels correct. There's our internet router. We do have 50 meg internet service from a wireless provider that we're helping. A sine wave inverter. There is our Victron 250 volt 85 amp controller. And then you're going to see the relay panel there. I'll talk about that a little bit as well in a couple minutes here and tell you what that's all about. 2 Bioenno 200 amp hour batteries. These are some beefy lithium ion phosphate batteries, and we're going to put a 3rd one in there as well. And a couple of duplexers up there on the top of the rack.
That's a 220 on the top and a UHF duplexer right below that. And so again, we don't do stuff sloppy like it looks here, but it looks awful sloppy at the moment. That's a 220 repeater, as those two Motorola's, and then two RCOM controllers there. We actually have 7 RCOM controllers that we are working on right now, 2 of them at the moment. The VHF repeater on 145.13, and then the 444.475 UHF repeater. We still have 2 more repeaters to add there, and the HF remote, which we've had going for years. Currently, you can see it's 138 volts at 22 amps coming off the panels, and that translates to charging those lithium-ion batteries at anywhere between 20 and 40 amps during full sun. And so during the day, those things get a really good charge. And of course, we run everything at night and don't have to worry about the power. It's pretty neat. Then we have a workbench we built back there. We're going to be putting test equipment there. We do have a 115 volt inverter, 2000 watt inverter that we use as well for our test equipment and so forth. There's the base of the tower right there. We actually have a funny story about that base, but that base is about 4 feet deep, and you can crank this guy up and down. And at the very top, we have a CX333 tri-band antenna that we use. So gives you a little bit of a look. There's our Wi-Fi antenna that's coming from the property next door from Sky High Broadband, and then we are going to retransmit the signal for them from here. We do get free internet, which is awfully nice of them, and so that's something that a little side benefit that we get. And so that's our internet connection and how we get internet. So anyway, we'll go through this and kind of talk about each device and what it does in here and how this all works. And it's pretty interesting how we keep that solar power alive, and even on cloudy days. So I'll be going through that.
There's the solar panels. Those go into the controller right there. That's the Victron controller that does all the magic, and that's what charges those 3 batteries. And then this unit on the top is a communications unit for the solar controller, so that we can run this entire thing over the internet, unless the internet goes down. If it does, we're out of luck. But that's how we can monitor all the power levels, find out how the batteries are doing, what the levels of all the batteries are, and so forth. And then you've probably all heard we have an HF remote. That's a TS2000 radio that's there. And so with this RCOM controller, this sitting right here, we're running the UHF repeater on 444.475. And how many of you have heard the HF swap net on our repeater? A lot of people listen to it. Yeah, I've heard there's bunches of people listen to that. We're going to have that back on shortly because we made this big move. By the way, that HF remote, the HF radio, has had in the past a 540-foot loop antenna. We're putting a 1,000-foot antenna up now, a 1,000-foot loop. This is a 26-acre piece of property. And there's nobody to tell us what not to do. It's just kind of neat. And baby, you have a wonderful way of telling me that you don't want an antenna at our house. That's why we have 3 flex radios up there also. So if you look at this diagram, you'll see that there is the 475 repeater right there, and 220 are on the same controller. Thank you, Brian. And the HF remote. So there's part of it. Yeah, point at that little the secret control receiver right there. This little guy right there. That's a receiver that we put on a private channel, and we sell you that channel for $1,000 if you want to know what it is. And we run it on DCS, which is not PL. It's DCS, digital tone. That's so that we can control the repeaters from the backside. So if somebody gets on the repeater, locks it up, we can go over to the control channel and we can run touch tones in there or whatever, and we can turn things on and off. Okay? Now, on right here, that is a relay interface, and what that's for is when you're running solar power, you don't want to deplete those batteries too fast. We found out that with the repeaters we have currently, if we have no power whatsoever, we can go 4 days with 2 batteries. That's why we said, well, let's put 3 in so that we can go 6 or 8 days with no power. And by the way, in rain, we do charge those batteries too. It's not at 50 amps, it's about 10. But that does it. That's pretty good. So what I do here is we have this relay panel, which is controlled by the controller. Right here, high power relays that turn on and off all the repeaters. We have quiet hours at night at 9 o'clock. Most of the repeaters get turned off. 444, 475 stays on. All the other repeaters get shut down. We have a CERT repeater right there. That's for Sacramento CERT. So those are the guys in emergencies for search and rescue and so forth. We leave that off permanently until there's an event. If there's an event, we turn it on. And we give those codes to all the control guys so that they can turn that repeater on at any time. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, 145.13 comes on. So if in the middle of the night you don't hear one of our repeaters up, it's because we're conserving power. And so that's what these relays are all about. So turn those things on and off. And we can do it through automation. So it was kind of cool. We can do it on a time basis, or we can put it through codes. Just say shut all the repeaters off because the batteries are starting to go down. These Bio batteries that you see up here, they're really interesting. They stay at about 14 and go down about 12 volts until they're almost dead, and then they just drop. They're gone. So they stay up high enough to keep stuff running until almost the very end. So then we have right here, this is a 2,000 watt inverter. We have stuff like test equipment sitting on the benches up there that take 115 volt power. And the inverter is always online. It draws about 2 amps just sitting and running without anything hooked to it. We have found that to be kind of necessary up there when we are using test equipment and so forth. So that's kind of important. By the way, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. I'll answer them while I'm talking. That's even better. And then, so as far as antennas go, we have the CX333 there. We also have a triplexer, which is a regular triplexer like you'd use. And that, it gets split off to 3 duplexers. Those duplexers then are sitting in front of the repeaters, and that's how we have 3 different repeaters on one antenna currently. I don't like the setup myself. Actually, it would be better to be able to split these off into 3 antennas. But I'm working through that. You see down here, we have a DMR repeater. Any of you guys use our DMR repeater? Yeah, one. Do you guys even know what's up there? Okay. It's on 442.525. And it's a UHF repeater, and it's available to anybody. All we ask, you guys know about hijacking on repeaters, on DMR repeaters. So yeah, we keep it on what's called Sac Valley. It's a group. It's a DMR group that covers the Sacramento Valley. Everybody uses it all over the country. But if you want to put it on Group 91, which is worldwide, you put your radio on worldwide and key it up, it will move the repeater over to another group, a talk group, right? But you need to listen before you do that. Make sure nobody's on the repeater because it will move it, whether they know about it or not. And it's called hijacking. Yeah. So you can get on and say, is anybody using the DMR repeater? No answer. Well, you move it wherever you want. You can talk to anybody. So we just ask that you listen first and don't just jump on and start talking on a different talk group. But the good news is that when you stop talking, in about 10 minutes, it'll automatically get stuck back over on Sac Valley again, where it belongs. DMR is a fascinating mode, gotta tell you. So, and it has a range twice as far as all of our other repeaters. So the digital really travels. So that's this repeater right here. It's running 50 watts. So you see that it has its own UHF duplexer right there and UHF antenna. It's not part of the other antenna. We just have a small antenna looking straight at Sacramento from there. All of our antennas, besides the CX333 vertical, they're all looking at Sacramento, because Sacramento is from our site directly to San Francisco as well. If you pointed at San Francisco, Sacramento is right in the middle, which is kind of neat. We have coverage clear down to Vallejo. We get over to Benicia. We cover Highway 680. It's not, hugely loud, but it works. You can get into our repeaters from out there. And, of course, most of the Sacramento Valley. We're starting to experiment a little bit with 2 antennas per system so that we can point one south and hear Stockton. We can see Stockton, but we want to be able to put antennas that can receive that way as well. So we're playing with some games up there right now. So, and controller 2 is for 145.13. Right there, we have Echolink and IRLP on one of the ports. We can open that thing up anytime. Anybody that has a control code can turn on Echolink or IRLP together. And All-Star is also on the next port right there. That's the All-Star port. So we can turn on All-Star or IRLP and Echolink, but we don't allow you to do it together. It causes a mess. You're cross-connecting systems when you do that, even though it has the capability of doing it. So anyway, this is where we are so far, and we're making this bigger, but we're going to try to do this all on solar power. The other thing that's important here is that we're running everything on touch tones. There's no internet running anything here. So that if you do lose the internet, it's not going to affect us. We can still connect through the TS2000. We can get on UHF or VHF and cross-connect them. Repeater, for example, in San Francisco, which we can hear from out there. We can cross-connect that to the UHF repeater real easily. So if there's we work with OES. We've been working with them for 25 years. If they need to cross-connect repeaters for some type of an emergency, we can do that from here. And it's agile, so you can tell it what frequency you want it to go to, what PL, and it will do it for you. That's about it. Any questions so far? Yes. Yeah.
Your Motorola radios, are those CDM 1550s?
Yes. No, well, they are, but they're 220s.
They got them, they're the 1550 models
Yes, they are.
running on the 6 meter? No.
No, they're running 220.
220, yeah. And are you going to put Arden up there?
You know, I've had guys ask me about that. We could. If
You got
guys,
a great coverage.
Well, yeah, it does. And so, and we've had guys asking us about a couple of different modes. We're talking about it. You got to look at power budgets when you're doing this, right? So the power budget is how much power do you have? If we get into some digital mode that's used all the time, that's a power hog. So we got to kind of ask that question. So, I mean, that's where we say, well, look, how about donating 2 more power panels and 2 more batteries, and we'll let you do whatever you want, right? I mean, we'll have a power plant up there. So who knows where this is going to go? I don't know where this is going to go. I know that we're invested right now about $15,000 in equipment up here right now. We just started a nonprofit foundation, which we're going through right now, called the Pacific Amateur Radio Foundation. And we're going to fund this to be able to give clubs money for their sites so that they can do this kind of stuff. So we'll accept equipment from people if you want to donate equipment or money. We've had 2 estates so far that want to donate substantial amounts of money to us for this purpose, where they've got hams that have passed away. It's kind of neat, and so we want to be able to spread that out and keep this cool hobby going. Any other questions?
I do have one more when you're done.
Well, what?
Are you going to run a WinLink gateway out of there?
We ran WinLink for quite a while. Here's the problem with WinLink, and it's not a huge problem for us, but we did it for a while. But remember, we're also running an HF remote up there, and trying to share that with WinLink and with people using HF has been a challenge for us. We've chosen at the moment not to, but that could change, depending on the need. Certainly, a 1,000-foot loop is quite an asset to have out there. You know, that thing can hear anything. Have you ever seen how loop antennas work? It's pretty fascinating because they have lobes out there that hear with gain all the way around it. It depends on the shape of it and the size of it and all that kind of stuff. And so that's pretty neat stuff. Yeah. So we may do that. We had Vera FM up there as well. We may put that back. Again, we're looking at power budgets again, right? We don't want so much stuff up there that we're scrambling for power all the time. During the summer, it's never an issue. It's the wintertime that we're going to struggle with. Okay, who is next? Yes.
You mentioned the batteries.
There you go.
You mentioned the batteries dropped to 0 below 12 volts. Is that because the battery management system shuts them down so there's no damage to them?
The batteries themselves do this. The batteries are amazing. These bioenno batteries and a lot of the lithium ion phosphate batteries have internal circuitry in them to shut them down. If they get to a certain point, they just shut off and say, I'm out of here.
It's called a BMS, yeah.
Right. And battery management system. So, but it does 2 things. If you can't overcharge them, so if they detect they're being overcharged, they will shut off and they won't let you charge anymore. But also in a reverse, you can damage batteries by discharging them too far. When they get to that point, they also shut off.
Second question on the 444 repeater. Don't we have Fusion as well, C4FM?
That's a good question. We used to, and we took it off because remember we connected with Denver, and Denver cooked it up to another 40 repeaters, and it was so busy, and they got kind of obnoxious at times that I said we're done with that. So we did have a Fusion repeater. We could put up a Fusion repeater again, and we've talked about it, but we're not going to connect anybody if we do. It'll be just a local thing here. The coverage is great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who else? Yes. I like your shack. That's really cool, especially the hidden cable. I've got to think about that concept.
During the summer or the winter months that we have, you're 1,200 feet, but you still get fog. Do you ever lose all the batteries with the continuous rain and fog in the valley over the years? Because I see my solar cells drop off quite a bit, and
They do, yeah.
and-
But I've also
scary.
been very surprised in fog and there's a lot of clouds up there. I mean, we're sitting in the clouds a lot. The batteries still do charge in the fog and the clouds. I don't even know how, but they do. They're probably running at 25-30% of what they normally would in sun. You saw the mounts on the solar panels. We have to change that 4 or 5 times a year to make sure that at 12 noon we're looking right at the sun, and then you get a pretty good arc of power there. But you guys ought to investigate solar. It's pretty cool stuff, especially with batteries. Regular solar by itself is kind of questionable for me. We have batteries in our house. We bought a model home, and it had batteries and solar and everything. It's been really interesting to watch. In our particular house, batteries charge during the day, fills up the battery completely full, and at 4 o'clock when rates go up, it takes us offline and discharges the battery through 9 o'clock and puts us back on the grid again. And all excess power gets put into the grid, and you get that credit back out if you need extra power. I was talking to our daughters; they're getting another 20 panels because of this new NEM 3 or whatever it is. They're getting 20 more panels. I said, you got to be a little bit careful. Don't buy too many. Don't buy more than you need, because when you give power back to PG&E, you get straight credit back if you use that power. But if you don't use that power, they're going to pay you 4 cents a kilowatt hour, and you're paying them 29. Does that make sense, right? So in other words, don't make more power than you need, because you're not going to get paid back for it. You might as well give it to them. So something to think about. Anybody else? Yes.
I was curious about your tower. It looked like a crank-up tower.
Yes. It's a crank-up tubular square tower.
I'd like to get the name of who makes that. Yeah.
I'll find out who made that. A guy donated that that got a divorce, and she said, you can have that stinking green thing out there, and that's it. See you later. So we got the tower.
Okay. If you find another one, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's a sweet tower, and under 200 pounds. Literally 2 people can pick that up and take it right off the mounting bolts and lay it over. And that's really kind of cool. So
Yeah, that was a great-looking tower. The other thing is, it looks like your building is actually an old walk-in freezer.
Well, it's got heated doors, so it's an environmental enclosure of some type. Yes, we don't know what it was used for, whether they were hanging meat in there or whether they were roasting something. But you know, it's really cool to have a stainless steel building, because it's a Faraday shield on top of that, so you're not going to get RF coming in from the outside, and that's a pretty big deal. Was there somebody else had another question? Yes. And we're going to find out. I'll let you know the next time I figure it out. When lightning is getting close, we do unhook all the antennas. There's a guy living up there, and he'll undo the antennas for us and get everything grounded. But, you know, if it hits fast enough, you've lost a lot. And boy, don't try. I've had a few radios guys have sent me, hey, can you fix this? And you open the cover, and it's charcoal. Probably not. So, anyway. Anything else, you guys? Yes. By the way, these are open repeaters. We don't take anybody out. We'll let anybody, and really anybody can be a controller. We're not picky, and we love having new people come on. There's a lot of old dudes on here. We're trying to fix that problem. So, wow. Did you want to get on our repeater? Okay, the wildfires. How do we handle wildfires? Up there, this place is groomed. It's a residence, and so we don't have anything around us at all. You might have noticed this thing is in the total shade. It's under oak trees, and so it's awesome. It's not sitting in the sun. But as far as wildfires, we're not worried up there. They have animals that are grazing up there. And the last site we were at, which was next door, had these donkeys. And I got to tell you, the first time I went up there was at 5 o'clock in the morning one morning. And you see those big doors open up. I had both of them open, and I was working inside, and it was dark. It was in the winter. And I never will forget, I came out and went to close the door, and there's a donkey behind the door. And man, he took off running, and I took off running the other way. I was convinced I met a chupacabra, man. I was hoofing it out there, scared me to death. Well, those guys became my good friends. Every time I came up there, all four of them would come over to the vault, and they'd stick their heads in the vault because I fed them carrots once in a while. But those guys became my best friends when I was up there working on the repeater. I have lots of pictures of me and the donkeys up there. And there's horses up there as well. We try to keep them away from the vault. They love coax. But anyway, we kept all that under control. We've kind of remembered all of this stuff on this new build. We're using conduit for everything. We're not leaving, coax hanging around. So that thing is going to get cleaned up. At some point, it'll be finished and presentable, and we'll probably take some folks up there and let you go up there and have a picnic and walk around and take a peek at what we're doing up there. It's pretty fun stuff. So we're trying to keep this ham radio thing going. Who else has a question? Yes.
I know where you are up there, Jeff. I had just a couple over from where you were, and I know the site you're looking at out over the valley. You can see the buttes to the north and the snow range up towards Redding and all the way down, and it's wonderful. We had a big fire there on 92. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that,
yeah.
Yes.
The Fawn Hill fire, and it was devastating. We lost a lot of star thistle.
Yeah. That's not bad.
And I was looking at it once with the radio in mind, and the view out that you talk about towards San Francisco is fantastic, but it sucks going east. On the other hand, our little radio site is wonderful looking up towards the mountains and the valleys and whatnot. Is there some way, if necessary, we could hook them together and increase the coverage?
You are right. The site, the EK site up there is absolutely stunning. I got to tell you, I think we go further west than you do, and we've got a bigger reach in some places. Absolutely. So the TS 2000 right there, if we turn that on, we can certainly give you guys a code that will link both of them together, and you'll come up on both sides for sure.
Might be something to think about.
Absolutely. And this is the eventual goal, is to have this thing so versatile that anybody, and then we don't have a code sheet, we have a code book that says you want to hook 4.3 up to this, or you want to hook up somebody in some other city, we'll have the availability.
And we suffer from that same shadow you do on Indian Hill Road there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's serious. You get down into Loomis, you can almost lose the repeaters down there, and it's because what happens, VHF and UHF signals don't turn corners. They go straight, and so you got a mountain sitting here, and we're trying to get over it. So I'll tell you where ours really shines is Madison Avenue. You hit Madison, and you can hit ours with a handheld with no problem all the way out there.
And given the stuff you have, I'm surprised you don't have a remote receiver down there somewhere and vote back.
Okay, so that's another thing that we're doing. That we're using multiple antennas on one repeater, one antenna south, one antenna west, so that we have a couple of different ears there with two receivers, and we're using equipment that'll tell which signal's the best. Yeah, they're voters. And so what happens is they listen to the audio, and if it hears crackling audio, it says, not that one, but I want to pick this one, and it switches. And so we're looking at that as well. There's no real end to this system, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? So we want to see this just be a real showpiece, and that's what the goal is. We'll be putting cameras up there at some point, so you can look around the area. We have a really, really high-end camera that we're going to put up there. Yes. No, you. Oh, no, you're the mic guy. Well, never mind. Who else? And people want to know what this is. Has anybody remember this gun? This is the monkey cannon. And I'm not going to shoot it in here because this is a dangerous weapon. There's a funny story behind this, and this almost took my ear off. I was reminded of that tonight at field day. We were launching for an antenna, right, Brian? I think we were shooting an antenna rope or something, and it came out of the barrel nice on it. It was hooked to a tennis ball full of what, shotgun shot or something. But it really went up good. But it hit my ear, and boy, it hit my ear and knocked my hearing aid straight up in the air, and it landed in the bushes up there at the airport. I don't know how many guys were looking for that thing, but it was probably 30 minutes later somebody came up with my hearing aid and I was saved. But I used to fire these things out of this cannon. And do you want me to share this story with you? Have I got enough time for another 5 minutes? Way back in 2006, our company was really profitable and doing well. And our CPA came up to me and he said, hey, you need to go buy a capital asset. And I said, for what? And he said, well, you're going to be paying a lot to the government if you don't spend some money. All right, cool. So I called a company who makes custom cannons, and I said, I want to make a cannon to launch T-shirts to people at concerts, right? I said, can I get away with that? And he said, we'll find out, right? So I think this was $7,000. And so I had this thing made, and right before we took it to the first concert, the concerts that we were doing at that time were 30,000 people. They were Christian concerts down at Laguna Seca in Monterey. And so I was getting ready to take this down there, and a friend of mine comes over with a stuffed monkey that looked it was like this right here, a stuffed monkey. And he said, hey, let's stuff this in your cannon and shoot it out of your cannon. And I said, I don't think that'll even fit in there. So we went and got a broom handle, and we stuck I actually have pictures of this. We stuck this monkey inside the cannon, and I went outside my door. Here's a hippie freak. He was pretty old. I'm going to guess he was my age, 70. Hair down here. He's smoking, I think, a cigarette. I'm not sure. With a flip phone. And he was 150 feet away from me. And I said, watch this, Larry. And I shot this monkey, and it went over his head right behind him and landed on the ground. And he starts screaming to the guy on the phone, a monkey just fell out of the sky. This is a true story. True story. So I said, hey, Larry, you got another one of those? And he said, yeah. And the guy never knew where this came from. And he's looking up there. You know what's so funny? He was looking at his cigarette going, what the heck? So I got another monkey, and I stuffed it in there, and I shot another one over his head, and it landed in the same spot. And this guy slammed his phone shut and said, I am out of here. And he backed into his office and left the monkeys laying there. And I said, Larry, how much are these monkeys? He was a monkey salesman. He sells that stuff, right? And he said, these are $3 a piece. And I'm thinking, I need another write-off. So anyway, we bought 500 of them, I think. And we took them to this concert, and I went up on the stage with this gun. Everybody in the entire crowd was just, they were enamored with this thing. I started shooting monkeys, and they gave me the nickname Monkey Commando, which I didn't even understand. And this is true. You think I'm making this up, but about a week after this concert was over, by the way, we launched every monkey we brought, and everybody was mad because their kids didn't catch one and we weren't selling them. So we had some moms that were very upset with us. What an opportunity I missed there. But anyway, what's really cool about this is about a couple of weeks later after this, I had a gentleman call me. He was a chaplain in the Army. And he said, are you the Monkey Commando? And how do you answer that? And I said, yeah, I was. I said, who are you? And he said, I'm Steve Young. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Army. That gun you have, that was really cool. Can you bring that to our base in Monterey, Defense Language Institute? Can you bring that and do a concert there and launch monkeys to the kids of the soldiers there? And, of course, I said, come on, I'll do that in a minute. Here's the fun part. It was such a success that we started a nationwide tour around the country doing Christian concerts at military bases and launching monkeys out of a cannon, okay, including 3 tours to the Pentagon. That's a whole nother story. Wow. Do you all remember Sputnik? Okay, so there's an old tale that When Sputnik was going around the Earth and they were always flying over the Pentagon, they were always baffled at why there were so many people in the middle of the Pentagon, on the grass area, right there in the middle, at 12 noon. They thought there must be a daily meeting out there, and they're talking about security, and they all had to get together, and there's no room big enough. So all these stories started circulating, and I asked when I went out there, what was that big gathering? He said it was the hot dog vendor at lunch. Had the Soviets completely whacked out. Yes.
Have you contacted Alert Wildfire to have them put a camera up there to be part of the system?
Actually, there is one on the property.
Okay.
Yep, it's up there already.
Okay.
So on a different tower. Yeah. So anyway, that gives you a little history behind the gun, and we're not going to launch it here because a tennis ball goes 1,000 feet with this thing. So if I did it toward the back window, it'd be not good. Yes.
Can you explain how it's powered?
Sure. This has nothing to do with ham radio, I got to tell you. Oh, this is great for antennas. You know, you could put the monkey on the end and launch an antenna. I think it's a great idea. Okay, so there's a line, a gas line. This works on liquid CO2. So we start with 3,000 pounds of pressure. And we... Does that sound excessive to you guys? So 3,000 pounds of pressure, and then we put it through a regulator that drops it to 300. I have not tried it over 300. That's a really bad idea. But it fills this tank with 300 pounds of pressure, okay? I have two buttons right here. Each one of them, there you'll see at the back here on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, but there are two valves right here. These valves are 1-inch valves, and they open wide open to dump everything in this tank into the barrel. And I can tell you whatever's in the barrel is coming out. The dumbest thing I ever did was put an Aquafina water bottle in one of these things. With water. And I just thought, we got to see what it will do. It went about 500 feet in the air. Very fortunately, did not come down in a crowd. I thought, I'm going to just send it out to the racetrack. And I did. And that thing exploded when it hit the ground. We did do one thing one time. Man, if I'm getting too long, man, just let me know. But I did one thing one time at this concert. There was a kids' concert going on. Let's call them teenagers. And I went to Carl's Jr. and said, I want an ice cream sundae with bananas and chocolate sauce and cherries. And they gave me a bowl full about that big. So I stuffed a T-shirt in here first because they didn't want to ruin my gun. And I put a T-shirt in and I poured all of this stuff in here. And these kids were, you know how kids are at a concert. They're like, go ahead, shoot me with it. And, I wasn't thinking about my high school science class when I did this, because when you have that much liquid, that's a tremendous amount of mass. And so when I shot it, I normally have it on my knee. This thing had, whenever there's a reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? Okay, so this thing slipped off my knee, almost broke my knee. That's why I'm having my knee replaced in July. So there you go. But it went down, hit a 3/4-inch piece of plywood on the stage, and almost went through the stage. But coming out the other side was this chocolate sundae that just rained on these kids. And you know what? To have that many kids going, yeah, and there's chocolate sauce on them. Their parents were absolutely furious because their Abercrombie shirts had a chocolate stain on it that is going to, and all that. So, we told them, hey, you need to go to the concerts where the old people are. We don't do that over there. So, okay, so there's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And any other questions about the cannon or anything else? Yes. Nathan's? Ground Zero. I was there, and I can't believe. One last story. I was asked to bring this to the Pentagon, and on my first trip, and I had it in a road case, and I got off the Sacramento airport, and I dropped this case on the curb, and this porter comes up to me and he said, "What's in the box?" And I said, "It's a monkey cannon." And he says to me, "Can I see the monkey cannon?" I said, "Yeah." And I opened it up, and he said, not, hang on a minute. He said, I got to get TSA. So he goes inside, and 3 TSA agents come out. And they said, what's in the box? I said, it's a monkey cannon. And I opened the box and showed them, and they said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to the Pentagon. And they asked me, whose authority are you going to the Pentagon on? I said, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Young. Can you get him on the phone? And so I called him up, and he said, yeah, it's true. He's going to the Pentagon with me. And they finally let me take it on. And he said, here's the deal. You can't take the gas with it. And I said, okay, I'll get gas in Virginia. And they put a tag on it that says unloaded firearm. And put it back in the case. They put a lock on it and said, you can only check this. You're obviously not going to carry this on the plane. And when I got to Virginia, the base commander, I told him this story, and he grabbed about 8 guys and put them in a military vehicle and got me gas at a local store. And I said, see, this is how it works. It's pretty cool. So there you are. I'm done. Anybody, any last questions, and I'm finished. I'll stop. There you go, man. Thank you.
Great job. Great job. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, sir.